It's Monday, October 14th, 2019. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, low power modes in things.
I did not look, but I'm confident we did not do a show on this.
Yeah. I think we might have mentioned it occasionally, like in the course of other tech episodes, but we definitely haven't gone deep into this. And if we did, anything we would have said is completely irrelevant to modern tech. All right, and there's 3 people watching, I guess. Okay. I have an opening bit. I'll do the Brave browser thing as my opening bit. So, many of you have heard of the Brave browser. It's a web browser that if you have not heard of it, don't go look for it. Don't use it. I feel like the demographic of person, and some of you might be offended by this, who use the Brave browser, is a fan of Andrew Yang, is really into vaping and Bitcoins.
Probably, yeah.
Like, I feel like that, it's the same kind of person who uses DuckDuckGo instead of, a regular search engine. So, one of the things the Brave browser does, and I'm just telling you this as an anecdote that you can do with what you will, is that it's set up to where it's really easy to make it use Tor for everything you do. Like, everything you browse, it'll just do Tor. Meaning it basically runs a Tor node, meaning don't fucking install the Brave browser on your desktop at work. You're probably going to get in trouble.
Yep.
And I'm just going to warn you all, if you are a punk kid who's into Andrew Yang and Bitcoins and vaping.
Why you're listening to this show, because we advise against all those things.
How did you find Geek Nights? How are you still listening to us? You might have figured out that we're not into any of the things you're into. But now you can add one more thing to that list. In my personal opinion, and not really in my professional opinion, because I don't give a shit that much which browser you use, but my personal opinion, it's too soon to use the Brave browser. I would not trust the Brave browser. I would use Firefox or Chrome or Safari. And honestly, Chrome less and less as time goes on. Chrome's not in a great place right now. Has anything happened to you in the last 48 hours?
Unpacked a lot of stuff because done moving mostly. Not really.
All right, guess we'll get right into the tech news. So, biggest tech news. A lot of you have not paid attention to the details of this story.
But it's one of those stories where it's like you read the news and it's like I feel like I read the story constantly every once in a while, but it's only because there's a lot of time between things happening because it involves courts. So it's like it only pops up in the news when the court does something. And then it's like you feel like you're just reading the same thing over and over again. And there's hardly any actual new news to it.
Yep. So the original news way back was Facebook ruined the internet because they falsely pivoted to video with clearly inflated metrics.
Right. So to explain it better, right? Imagine it's the mid to late 2000s, right? And you're a website and you make videos, right? And you put them up on your own website or something, right? And
like College Humor.
That's like the prime example,
Super successful standalone business with its own hosted videos. People are watching those videos. They're making money. They're profitable. They're successful.
And then what happened is Facebook, right? They completely lied. They made up fake analytics numbers to suggest that videos, when posted on Facebook, get a shit ton of views. So you're sitting there thinking, well, I get enough views and I run my show on my own website. But if I were to upload my videos to Facebook instead, I would get a fuck ton of views, even more than I'm getting now, and make even more money, right?
Now, if you assume that data is true, that's probably the smart move.
Right, you're also, not only that, if you're sitting there and you don't even make videos, maybe you got a blog, and it's like, oh, hey, if instead of making news articles or blog posts, if I make videos and put them on Facebook instead, because look at those numbers of people watching videos on Facebook, I'll just gonna convert my whole business. I'm gonna make a video studio, hire video people, fire my writers. Well, fire some of the writers because I still need to write the videos. But just start making tons of videos instead of what I was doing before, and put them on Facebook instead of my own website. And then it turns out those numbers were a lie. So there aren't that many people watching the videos on Facebook, and you can't make that much money off of it.
So even consider if you're YouTube. YouTube would look at their own metrics and then see Facebook publishing that they're getting like millions and millions more views on their platform.
Yep.
So even like Google would have to like react to these numbers. The numbers were inflated to make a fine point by up to 900%.
Yep.
That is fucking disastrous.
Right. So the result is that all these businesses, people running websites, making content, articles, videos, whatever, turned over their whole business, making decisions based on data they believed to be true. That was fake data, but they believed it to be true. They made business decisions on false data, resulting in their business basically being ruined in some cases, or completely changed, or completely, damaged severely.
Yep. I mean, how many podcasts failed because they pivoted to video and then didn't actually get that many views?
Anyway, a lot of websites with that made content, just like articles, switched to making videos, moved over to Facebook, right? And then no one was going to their website anymore, but they were like, well, we get banned in that website because no one's going there. Everyone's on this Facebook thing, and then no one was on the Facebook either. It's like you were in, you had your store on a good street, and someone told you, no, this other street, there's so much foot traffic over there, and you go, oh man, I got to move my business. You move your business. There's no foot traffic over there.
Meanwhile, there's a
You're very bad man.
But meanwhile, there's a ton
You
of
make a suggestion for my business.
But
You're wrong.
Meanwhile, there's a whole bunch of people who are still looking for you on the old street because the old street was making enough money for you to have a normal business continuing to thrive.
So this happened, and people sued Facebook, which is what you do when that kind of thing happens, and they won, which is that kind of thing because they were right.
Yep.
But the penalty in court that Facebook suffers for doing this lying, it's like you think about the thing they did seems small, just lying about numbers, but the damage caused by that small thing was enormous. But the penalty Facebook is paying is what?
So the penalty is $40 million. In my opinion, the penalty should be $40 billion.
Right, because it doesn't matter what you did, it's how much damage you caused, right? If I, swing my fist and I happen to kill 3 children, and someone else, I don't know, sets off a firework and burns a guy's arm, it's like, well, setting off the firework is clearly more severe than just swinging a fist, but I killed 3 children, so I deserve 3 children death worth of punishment, whereas firework guy deserves burned a guy arm worth of punishment. Facebook just lied about some numbers, how many people are watching the videos, and they destroyed entire content creation companies across, how many places.
Like I know multiple people whose careers were directly affected by this.
I know several websites, that people worked at that basically are now gone or shells of their former selves, and all those people are now working at different places, doing different things.
Yeah. So, honestly, the only solution at this point, and this is partly why GeekNights has formally endorsed Elizabeth Warren for the Democratic primary for president, is that I think Facebook should be fucking broken up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies should, but
Facebook should be broken up irrespective of this.
Google, Microsoft,
Facebook should be
Apple.
broken up and simultaneously probably destroyed by being forced to pay for the real damage it caused. I mean, if I'm driving my car and I
think that this is only one instance of Facebook causing damage. We should really just take all of Zuckerberg's money and all of Facebook's money, right? And all of and all the shareholders, anyone who owns stock, take the value of those shares from them, right? Basically take all of its worth entirely, instantly, and give it back to not only the people who are directly damaged,
but how many people lost
Facebook,
parents to becoming crazy conservative nut jobs because of Facebook?
How many parents lost children who killed themselves because of bullying on Facebook?
Yep.
How many? Literally every single bad thing that was caused by Facebook, people should be able to submit and get paid, and also our entire society should be paid back for the damage that Facebook has caused in general. How many people lost? If you lost a year of your life playing Farmville, Facebook should have to pay for that
I think
too.
Farmville was unethical.
Yep.
Now, before you say, but what about all the other companies that do similar things?
Them too.
Yeah, one at a time. Pick your battles.
Them
Facebook
too.
is the most egregious offender here, and honestly, destroying Facebook would solve a lot of the short-term problems our society is having right now.
Oh yeah.
Because, well, that's a topic for another time. Because
Lost
we have
your
a bunch
job
more
because
news.
of some Facebook?
Yeah. So in some other news, and this is a really good idea. I'm actually really happy about this, and I think other cities need to do the same. San Francisco, the city in the U.S., is looking to basically pass a law saying that if you want to roll out some technology, I'll get back to what technology means in a second, using public streets or public infrastructure in any way, you need to go to a new office in the city called the Office of Emerging Technology and apply for a permit. And the permit will either say, yes, you have 1 year to deploy your technology, and then we will review it to see if it has detrimentally impacted the livelihood and lives of the people in the city, and then either let you continue deploying that technology or ban you from the city. Mm-hmm. And the focus of this is to prevent companies like Lime from putting those terrible scooters all over and ruining everything.
Right. So, I mean, the thing is with the scooters is, right, it's like I don't hate the scooter itself, right? No. It's like anyone using a non-car to get around, that's fucking great, right? And, you know, it's like, okay, you're renting it from some sort of, you know, Silicon Valley business. That's not, I would rather you just buy a scooter and own it, right? So it's not the best, but it's like, that's okay. There's like the Revel, you know, electro scooter thing. It's like, that's actually kind of okay.
I was actually looking at those. I wanted to see how expensive they were because...
Not that bad.
Yeah.
Considering what you get. But it's that I don't mind that as much because it's going, they're parking them in parking spaces, which shouldn't exist in the first place, but they're there, right? The problem I have with the scooter is that they're just dumping them on the sidewalk, right?
This is one of those problems.
I'm walking here.
This is an affordance problem, the UX problem. Affordances are, you have a thing. It's intended for a purpose. But by the intrinsic nature of that thing, it affords other types of behaviors that you either don't care about or you actively don't want someone to do. Like, it basically means you intended X, someone figures out they can use it for Y. That's effectively what that means.
Right. So imagine if I had a business and my business was like, hammock rental, come take a nap, right?
Yep.
So if I got my own land with my own trees, my own hammocks, and you come and you pay some money and sleep in a hammock, that's all great.
Yep.
If I just go into Central Park and set up some hammocks, even if I set them up in a friendly way that is not damaging trees, right? It's like if I'm selling sleeps in those hammocks, that's fucking public land. You can't be doing that shit here. So you can't be parking your fucking, you know, scooters and running your business off the sidewalk.
The affordance of a
street cart that sells food off the sidewalk has a permit.
The affordance of a dockless scooter or dockless bicycle as opposed to a docked scooter or bicycle is that you can park it anywhere.
Well, you could just drop a dock somewhere, right? On the sidewalk.
But while you can drop a dock somewhere, the problem is not necessarily the fact that it's dockless versus docked, because the problem is specifically that the average user of these things is basically the common clay of the New West, and they don't give a shit where they leave the scooter.
Nope.
And there's no reason for them to, because there is no consequence to them if they leave the scooter somewhere stupid.
Right. If you got a city bike, it's like regardless of the fact that city bike is a city thing, you know, has
if I don't bring it back to the dock, I'm out like $5,000.
Well, I'm just saying there's a contract with the city to put the docks. It's not just they dump the dock there of their own without asking anyone, right? But also, if you lose a city bike and you don't redock it, you're out $1,200.
It's $1,200. I thought it was a lot more than that originally.
$1,200. But the point is, a lot of people like lose theirs, or people like go in to get a coffee, come out and it's gone, and they're like, fuck, right? And they go on Reddit and they're like, oh no, my city. Anyone seen the city bike? Oh shit.
Earlier this summer, I saw someone steal a city bike, and I saw this dude like freak out and start chasing after him.
I saw a dude grab a city bike, get on a ferry. The city bike docks at both ends of the ferry. There's no reason to bring one on the ferry.
Yep.
And then when he got off the ferry, he forgot it and was running back to the ferry to go and get it.
Dude, I saw 2 people with city bikes on at Sandy Hook Beach.
Whoa.
I don't think they understand how much money they were going to owe at the end of the day.
No, I've seen people bring it onto Roosevelt Island. It's like there's no docks on Roosevelt Island. You'd have to like bike off the island pretty quick. With that time anyway. But yeah, you can just literally just get off the scooter and just like plop it anywhere. You can just leave it in a Starbucks.
So the important thing, the reason you read this article, because it goes into depth I don't want to get into in the news right now, but what San Francisco is proposing is a very, very intelligent way to balance the needs of, one, we want to innovate in making the lives of people in urban areas better. Like better infrastructure, and we want to innovate. We want to try out modern technology, but at the same time, we want the government to be able to regulate, control, and plan that technology in a way that does not have negative and unanticipated consequences. And this law seems to specifically attempt to balance that in a very nuanced and intelligent way. I am really invested in how this law might go, and I encourage you to read this article. In some other brief news, we often talk about how we don't talk a lot about tech news because most tech news is dry as shit. So I wanted to talk about some actual tech news so you can be reminded why we don't talk about this stuff on Geek Nights. AMP. You even know what that is?
It's like active mobile
Yeah.
pages or something like that.
I always forget
I know
about
what
it.
it is. I forget what the acronym stands for. It's definitely mobile something.
Yeah, it's like a mobile accelerator technology. It's
basically
one of
all
those
it
things.
is Google says, hey, if you make your mobile site use this subset of HTML and JavaScript, just keep your website real simple and within these constraints, right? Then we'll be able to super cache your content and like load it. They were doing stuff like loading it directly off of Google. Like you'd be on Google, you do a Google search, you click a link, your website loads straight from Google. People don't even go to your website because your content has been cached on there, or you make browsing super fast. Basically, Google would give you all the love if you made a super fast mobile site by just constraining yourself to this subset of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
I know we've already lost a lot of you here.
Yeah, anyway.
So this is a Google proprietary thing, effectively. Like, it's a Google thing.
Yep.
So it is now...
It's not a W3C thing. It's a Google thing.
So it is now joining the OpenJS Foundation, which is the Linux Foundation-based group that launched last year. I'm just quoting Facebook, after the merger of Node.js and the JS Foundation, or JavaScript Foundation.
All
So
these
now,
foundations are where companies send their technology that they don't want to maintain anymore.
Yep. So the OpenJS Foundation that now will also manage AMP is responsible for jQuery, Node.js, and Webpack. None of you probably care. And there's very little interesting to say about this, but the one thing I can say is that I feel like we're on the cusp of a major radical reorganization of how open source software gets built and maintained, because the reality is a lot of large companies increasingly rely on a very small number of very important open source packages, and the funding model around that is increasingly difficult to understand and maintain. And it is very difficult in this modern late capitalist hellscape to work on open source software seriously for actual free and still survive.
No, I mean, the Linux kernel model, which is, the foundation model, seems to have, worked and continue to work, right? As long as you still get people to work on the thing, right? The Linux kernel, the way it works is they have a foundation and it pays people, right, to work on it. But there are also lots of people who work at, say, Intel, NVIDIA, AMD, all these other places, right, that need, mostly hardware-y places, right? And they need their shit to work with Linux. They need Linux kernel to run with their hardware. So they're always, sending in patches, even though they're NVIDIA, IBM employees, whatever employees. Right? Red Hat employees. They're all sending in kernel patches. So if you've got a situation like this, the AMP goes over to this foundation, right? Someone over at the foundation is being paid by the foundation's donations, which could come from Google, individuals, who knows, right? Companies that rely on that software will donate money to pay those people, but then full-time employees at the companies will also send in patches for the people at the foundation to, manage and whatever. That's what that model is, and it's worked.
Yep. I don't have much more to say about it because this space is kind of complicated. But,
but the AMP thing is like, it would take like a whole show. I guess that would be a Monday show idea.
Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about it before, though, on Monday. But yeah, that's like a whole drama ever since Google started it, especially mostly surrounding that aspect of Google hosting your content, people not actually visiting your website stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, well, I mean, there
have been a lot of changes there.
There's a tweet that makes the rounds periodically, and it's just a few words, and it sort of sums up one of the fundamental problems of the modern internet. And I quote, I don't even know who said it first, "I feel like there used to be more websites."
Yeah.
So, right into things of the day, because we went long enough there, I think. I'll skip the Richard Stallman thing. Things of the day. So I had a thing of the day that I wanted to use that was about ports of CoinOps, but I can't find it anymore. And I can find all these similar articles that aren't as good. So instead, I'm using a thing of the day that both expresses my feelings about that fact that I can't find the original thing of the day, and I also find extremely amusing personally. Just watch it. It is a 4-second video on a tweet.
I think this is a self-referential thing of the day because it is such a meh thing of the day.
I think it's delightful.
It is when you can if you announce this is my thing of the day, you could use this as a response to that statement.
But I think it is a really good thing of the day because comedically it's perfectly timed. You don't see the sword until the final sound. It's comedically timed very well. And if you don't recognize what that sound is, I weep for you. Because you missed out on a cultural touchstone.
Anyway. So, way back in the day when you were a kid, you go to the pediatrician's office or maybe a dentist's office, and there's two things you're always going to find in that office.
Oh, there's the wires with the balls on them.
There's a toy, which is basically a table, and in the table are a bunch of wires that have both ends of the metal wires, kind of thick gauge, with both ends stuck into the wood and twisted into a crazy shape. And on those wires, the assortment of them are like various wooden objects with holes poked in them that slide back and forth across the wires. That if you just search on Google for like doctor's office toy, you will see that toy.
To this day, if I saw one of those, like if one were in this room, I think I would fuck with it for a little bit.
Well, I'm just saying is that I'm pretty sure I get the feeling I have no evidence for this, is that someone invented that toy, right? And then no one's going to buy the toy for their fucking house, right? They went.
I mean, it doesn't have that much replay value.
I feel like whoever made that toy, whoever came up with it, went around specifically to doctors, dentist office, pediatrician offices, right? Pediatric dentist offices, and was like, get this toy for your waiting room. We're marketing it to you. Look, you don't even have to clean it up. It doesn't get a mess everywhere like blocks or anything.
I'm sure it's covered in fecal coliform, but that's a different problem.
This is the perfect toy for your office. It's, it makes your office look really attractive.
If you don't know what we're talking about, I weep for you having missed a cultural
it could be an American
touchstone.
thing. I don't know, but just Google for doctor's office toy. You'll know what it is. The other toy that I always only had in doctor's office, not at home, though this was a toy you could get at home.
One, I had those toys at home.
Right. And
two, they're not cheap.
No, they're not cheap at all. That's why we didn't have one. Is the model train that is not electric. It's just wooden tracks.
Specifically the Thomas the Tank Engine one.
Well, there were generic ones.
Yeah, I'm saying the Thomas the Tank Engine one was the premium offering.
Sure, but there was wooden tracks. You had hills and tunnels and bridges and all kinds of everything, right? Turns, everything. But the tracks are only wooden with 2 grooves, and the trains themselves would you just push them and they rolled. They used magnets to connect the cars together. But you could also get ones that were sort of like, pull the train back and let go kind of situation, right? Where the train goes up by itself a little bit. You don't just have to push it with your own force. Yep. I only saw those a couple times.
But this specific one in your video I had as a kid, it was not cheap, and my brother was obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine.
Was it powered in any way, or just human powered?
It's the one from this video.
All right, just human powered, you just push it?
Yep, just push it around.
Anyway, so yeah, in this video, someone has this old wooden train set that I used to only see in doctor's offices. Plus,
it had like a bunch of magnets and stuff.
Yeah, the magnets were, like I said, to connect the cars together.
Yep.
And they got the Thomas the Tank Engine cars, and they do mad tricks with those cars. Like, whoa, like better than Hot Wheels tricks. And someone has taken that original video with the tricks. We're going to link to the original trick video because we're pretty sure that won't be taken down off YouTube. But someone has replaced the overlay music in the video with some copyrighted music that resulted in my original link getting taken down. Excellent musical choices. So if the thing of the day link is down for copyright violation, just search for Thomas the Tank Engine tricks Biggie Smalls and you'll hopefully find a re-upload. If not, at least you can see the tricks and play the music on your own in Spotify or something.
Yep. So, in the meta moment, the GeekNights Book Club book is The Tale of Genji. Over the course of the holidays, I'm pretty sure we will finish this book over the holidays.
I bet no.
All right, pretty sure we'll finish this book by...
When did I select this book?
When did you select this book? I will click on the link to this. Our website does not show the date that you selected this book. You are safe from shame.
Okay.
Anyway, we were reading The Tale of Genji. Read it along with us. It's the first novel, so I feel like we should talk about it on the GeekNights Book Club. I will make a solemn oath to you because I get to pick the next book. I will pick something very short and something that is not a Dungeons & Dragons licensed property. I make this oath to you. Otherwise, we will be live at PAX Unplugged doing 2 events. We will be doing Learn and Play and Win. I forget what time we're going to do it. I got to look that up. And it'll be a workshop where we teach you a bunch of games. And then we will also be doing a panel, a brand new one called Play Your Fucking Turn. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to this panel. It's brand new, putting some slides together, doing some research. We're doing not the most research we've ever done for a panel, but this might be like the third most research we've ever done. I'm pretty excited about this one. Also, stay tuned for some PAX South announcements and some MagFest announcements, maybe some ZenkaiCon announcements. A lot of stuff is coming. This is coming up on the GeekNights busy season.
Okay. It's only been 95 days.
Okay.
Since we announced that book club.
So we're averaging a chapter per 100 days?
That's
how we're going?
That is currently the rate about.
All right. That's I feel like maybe I should just read some Dumas on the way.
Maybe.
All right, let's get right into it. So this is a topic that I'm a little annoyed about because it stopped working on fully 50% of the devices I own over the past 6 months.
So I have an HTPC, right? So you have an HTPC. The thing you kind of want to do with an HTPC, right, is turn it on without being near it, because you sit on the couch. You want to turn on the computer when you're on the couch. You don't want to get up and push the button on the computer. That's why TVs have remote controls, right?
Yeah.
So you got to understand how a computer goes to sleep.
Yep.
Right? If you shut down a computer, right, and you cut power, that is called, there's these sleep states, right? That is called either just off or sleep 5, which is soft off, which is basically the same fucking thing as off.
Now, we're only going to talk about relatively modern computers. I don't want to talk about like how this worked on old ancient stuff.
Only current modern computers, right?
Yeah.
And to turn the computer on from those states of sleeping, right, in soft off, sleep 5, almost everything in the computer has had its power cut to it except for the power switch, right? There's 2 lines on the power supply, obviously, that are still running electricity. Computers run electricity, and those are basically powering the power switch and not much else, right? In soft off, there's a few other things that are still powered that allow the computer to maybe be turned on, like sometimes the LAN, so you can wake on LAN.
ACPI actually does not define nearly as much as I thought it did.
No, not at all.
Good Lord, that's why this all sucks.
It's part of why it sucks, and every motherboard and OS is a big pain in the ass. Yeah, so that's like sleep 5, right? The most sleep, or even completely off. You got to push.
So technically, sleep 5. Just so we sound smart, I'm looking up documentation. Sleep 5 is also G2, which is considered soft off. There is a deeper one that's called mechanical off that is completely separate.
Yeah. Anyway, so
the computer's power has been totally removed via a mechanical switch.
Right. So you got to turn the computer on with the button if your computer's fucking off.
Yep.
Right. So obviously, you want to be able to turn the computer
No.
off.
Mechanical off requires 2 buttons to be pressed to turn it back on. Power supply switch, then on button.
Sure, right.
Soft off, the power supply is still on and drawing a current and powering elements of the motherboard, but the computer itself is otherwise not operating.
Yes.
That's the only way the power button could work. Talk about a power supply.
That's what I said. The power button is the only thing that's powered.
But the power button on the front of the computer as opposed to the other power button.
If you turn the power supply itself off, then nothing in the computer is receiving power even from the power supply, except the power supply is getting power from the wall, but that doesn't mean anything.
And if you go to old,
actually drawing
if you go to
from the wall.
old computer,
it's like if you turn your lights off, it's like, well, they're not drawing power from the wall even though they're plugged into it.
But the switch could still work. So I guess the analogy that's not quite accurate but is close enough would be if you went and then turned off the breaker so the switch can't even work.
Anyway, so the next level of off on a computer is S4, which is hibernation. So what happens in hibernation, right, is that your computer takes everything in RAM and it puts it on storage. Usually on Windows, it makes a file on your file system called like hyberfile.sys or something like that. It literally is a file that contains the contents of RAM. Exactly.
Yep.
Right.
Because think about it. All your computer is a bunch of storage that's non-volatile, meaning it'll remember stuff.
Yep.
And storage that's volatile, meaning it only remembers it as long as you are constantly feeding a huge amount of power.
When your computer goes off, right? Well, the way RAM works, the way your CPU works, is everything, all the memory in the RAM and CPU will just be erased because they need electricity to hold that data in memory. But your hard drives are magnets or SSDs or whatever the hell they are, right? And it's like those don't lose their memory. So you just copy all the RAM and all the registers and the CPU and everything to the disk and then turn off and hibernate. And now the computer's kind of mostly off. It's not too different from when it's, S5.
Yep.
But someone comes along, pushes the power button, and the computer will copy everything that's on that file on the hard drive when it's booting into RAM, and it turns on way faster, and your computer, even though it was off, suddenly it's like it's just where you left off using it. Your browser's open.
Yep.
It's all the same web pages you were looking at. Your game is still running as long as it wasn't a multiplayer game.
Yep.
Right. It's like, oh, it doesn't feel like I turned it off. It's exactly where I left things. Oh, that's interesting. Right?
Now, a sort of modern caveat to that is that in most of the reason people wanted to hibernate computers in the old days is that they'd have very long-running desktop applications they wanted to leave on, usually because computers took forever to boot and applications took forever to start. My current computer boots faster than I can react.
Yep.
But if it's hibernating and I wake it up from hibernation, that actually takes longer than just booting.
Depends.
Depends on how much I had open in RAM.
Yep.
I got a lot of RAM.
Yep. Okay, so the next level we have is sleeping. Now, sleeping is the thing I had a problem with lately, right?
Yep.
So there were
I too have a problem with it lately. S3 and S4 both fail on my computer now.
So, and S4? Oh,
Yeah.
For me, it's only I got different issues. Anyway, so
If I get below S2, my computer basically can't wake up again.
Oh, no.
And I'm pretty sure it's a Windows update that caused a specific problem.
I got a different problem. Anyway,
This is a recent problem. Like
mine is a longer running problem, but I didn't try to fix it till recently. Anyway, so basically S1, S2, S3 are all sleep, but modern computers don't use 1 or 2. It's basically only 3. Right?
Yeah. Well, or if they do things that are effectively what S1 or 2 would do, like you don't need to know about it. Like and this is where it gets complicated because the devices in your computer can have their own independent power saving
Right.
features.
We'll talk about those things later. But S3 is sleeping for all intents and purposes. Your modern motherboard probably won't even support 1 or 2.
Yeah.
It's just 3 only. And what happens when you sleep a computer, a modern PC, is the same. It's like closing a lid on your laptop. That's sleeping. What happens is the computer will still draw electricity, but it will turn off just about everything it needs for you to use it. Right? So it will turn off the hard drives. It'll stop, if they're magnets, it'll stop spinning the hard drive motors. It'll turn off the monitors. It'll turn off a lot of USB ports. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
It gets complicated. It'll attempt to turn off a lot of USB ports, but some USB ports can force themselves to stay up.
Right.
And
some of them will still charge devices depending on your settings.
If you ever seen, there's like blue USB ports generally mean like USB 3, and I'm making quotes because it's all complicated. And if they don't have a color or they're black, it's just USB 2. If they're white, it might be 2 or it might be old 1. But if it's yellow means it'll still have power.
On some computers, it does that. Mine, I have the option in my BIOS on my computer to like still maintain power to some ports.
Yep.
They're all blue. You don't know you have to figure out which ones they are. Right?
Because there's
I've seen some laptops do the yellow thing.
Yeah, on my old laptop, the yellow meant that if the laptop's plugged in, it'll just power the pins for charging devices on that without otherwise interacting with anything.
But anyway, the point is when you sleep a computer, it turns off a lot of things, right? But it holds the memory in the RAM and it holds the CPU state. It doesn't do any processing. It just holds and doesn't turn off. It doesn't hibernate. It just holds where it is. It uses the minimum electricity it can to remember what the fuck the computer was doing at the moment you told it to sleep.
Yep.
And turn off as much as it can to use as little electricity as it can. That way, you can push a button on the keyboard or move the mouse or something like that, because obviously you wouldn't know if you push the keyboard or mouse if it was hibernating or off because they'd have no power.
Yep.
It's still powering the mouse and keyboard, so that way it knows if you move them, or push a button on them, so that it can now wake up and go back to being on. And on is just S0. 0 is on.
Yep.
Right.
So my current problem with my current computer that started 2 Windows updates ago, and I just haven't, I tried to troubleshoot it, and this is difficult because there's a lot of moving parts. I don't care that much. But basically, once my computer sleeps, nothing will turn it back on. Short of physically forcing it to boot anew. No input device will trigger it. No wake on LAN type thing will trigger it. The power button will not trigger it. It just cannot turn back on.
Yep.
And but I can force it to turn back on by doing the hold the power button for 4 seconds thing. And that'll basically force it to power off. And then I can power it on normally.
Oh, you got to go off first.
Off first, then it'll
you got
power back on.
Way different problem than me. All
Yeah.
right. So anyway.
And I will talk later about, if we have time at the end of the show, for how I have attempted to troubleshoot this. And all I will say is that even if you know a lot about computers, this type of stuff is actually really hard to troubleshoot.
Oh, yeah. It's so poorly documented, too. When you get your motherboard instructions, like half the settings in your BIOS or UEFI are about this power settings.
Yep.
And there's almost no instructions in the and even you Google, people barely know what these different settings do, and they're not self-explanatory.
Meanwhile, I
at
still
all.
have the manual that came with my 486, and it has hyper detailed explanations of the potential power saving modes that could enable.
Yeah, but modern motherboards, it's like every motherboard's got different settings, and they're all different explanations.
Yep.
And it's like all bullshit, and they're not anyway. So another thing you got to be worried about is all those S things we just talked about for PCs. That's under like the ACPI spec. There's other things going on. There's like ASPM, which I think is active state power management.
Oh, God, I don't even know a lot about that.
That is a separate thing just for PCI Express. So it's like you tell your computer shit along the lines of like, yeah, you manage the power of these different PCI Express devices when we're sleeping, when we're hibernating, when we're soft off, when we're whatever.
Ooh, that's like the old, like, I remember doing something. Well, it definitely wasn't that because it was way old, but.
Right. It's like, hey.
I wanted Wake on LAN to work on my old PC, and I had an ISA network card.
Right, because if something's built into the motherboard, let's say a network card, you want to have Wake on LAN.
Yep.
Right, which means you want to be able to turn the computer on via the network. Well, that means no matter how off the computer is,
the network card has to be able to receive packets.
The network card needs some power, right? So this can be annoying. Wake on LAN has this whole host of issues. Sometimes the computer will turn on too easily from any old packet.
Because old networks, there wouldn't be any packets unless they were for you.
Right, and now it's like, well, I need to actually look at the packet to decide if I'm going to turn on. Well, now you need more power to run your network card's processor a little more.
Or you need to be fully awake so the processor can do something, and then
anyway,
what the fuck?
Point is, if you have the ASPM stuff is basically a way for your computer and your OS and your motherboard and everything to work together to be like, okay, you have these PCI Express cards. Let's figure out when we're sleeping which ones need power and how much. When we're hibernating, which ones need power and how much. When we're off, which ones need power and how much.
And all I'll say about this is a lot of odd PCI Express cards will have their own nonsense that makes them incompatible with this.
Yep.
Like, I have a FireWire card. Good fucking luck if your computer tries to tell that thing to go to sleep, recovering from that without rebooting.
Yeah, so this shit gets really complicated really fast. It's really annoying. And that's only in computers. Think about other things.
Someone in the stream just asked, so how does low power mode work on my iPhone X?
Exactly. So low power mode on a phone, right? It's like, well, you can obviously just, when you click your, the button on the side of your phone, just turn the screen off. That's basically sleep, right? The phone's not off. It's still doing all kinds of stuff. You're just turning the screen off and turning some other things off, right? But it's still on. It still will take a phone call if you get called, right? It'll still get a notification if you get a notification. It's just turning the screen off and turning enough things off so that, it can save power.
Yep.
Right? If you actually go into the settings and choose low power mode on your phone or something like that, what then it's doing is it's actually disabling features as much as possible to extend the battery. Right? It's like, okay, well, let's stop checking for notifications. Let's stop updating your GPS for your weather constantly.
Let's stop doing the smooth scrolling so you don't have to spin up that GPU.
Right. It's like, let's degrade and turn off software and turn off features, right? So that we can just get this battery to last as long as we can and have the phone just like not fucking do anything.
You said the magic word. This is one of the fundamental divides between what we mean when we talk about like power saving modes. If a thing is intended to always be plugged into power saving modes are there to protect the environment.
Mm-hmm.
If your device is using a battery, power-saving modes are intended to deal with the fact that battery technology has not kept up with society.
Yep.
And they are radically different problem spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why they're so radically different is that batteries have yet another problem. Depending on how you charge and drain the battery, you can have a device that performs better or saves power in the short term, but physically destroys the battery itself faster.
Yep.
And those things are all configurable in phones now and configurable in laptops now, and they're too complicated for most people to understand and use.
You got to think about other devices too, not even computational devices. Say like, I don't know.
A bike computer, I guess, doesn't matter.
No.
You put a intrinsic battery in there, it'll last for a year.
No. Like say your microwave, right? Well, your microwave, you plug it into the wall, right? It's got a fucking clock. it's always drawing this tiny amount of power to keep that clock going. You unplug that microwave, 2 seconds, boom, clock's reset. There's no battery in there to keep that clock's, time. Maybe some microwave has
In
it.
fact, I just got to notice they're going to turn off power to my building at some point, like this week. So all those clocks are just going to be blinking 12, and I got to fix them all.
Yep. I don't know why they don't put like tiny coin cell batteries in there to keep the battery going.
The answer to a lot of these more fundamental questions are late capitalism and a lack of care for wasting electricity.
Yeah, my rice cooker has a coin cell battery inside.
So does mine, because I have a very nice rice cooker.
Right, and mine, I've had the rice cooker so long because it's so nice that it doesn't hold the coin cell battery ran out and you can't replace it. It's not user replaceable. I don't want to open my rice cooker. So I only get time on the rice cooker when I plug it in, and I don't leave it plugged in all the time.
So get this, my rice cooker, this tiny little screen that shows the clock, it shows the clock, and it's like a really bright interface there.
Mm-hmm.
If I unplug it, it still shows the clock, but it gets way dimmer.
Yep.
To save power.
Yeah, mine did too. I've had it so long.
Yep.
10 plus years, that rice cooker. Anyway. But yeah, every device that you have that plugs into the wall is going to be taking some, hopefully like a lamp is going to take zero power when you have it off, right?
Well, except
you get some smart lamp bullshit.
Here's the problem. Smart lamps draw power to run themselves, or LEDs require ballasts and things. Like they have to be converted to DC power, or voltage up, like fluorescents need voltage up regulation. All sorts of nonsense has to happen. Anytime you're converting from AC to DC, you have to have a transformer, and usually that transformer is between the outlets and your device and will just constantly be leaching power as long as it's plugged in.
Yep.
Unless the switch is physically in the transformer.
You got some kind of timer or something between your lamp and the wall to cut the power, right, completely. Yeah. The other thing you got to think about is like a television, right? Even if you have a television that's not a smart TV, just an old regular flat screen TV, right?
Yep.
Or even a CRT. If it has a remote control, that TV is always drawing power because the IR receiver needs to be powered in order to know when you push the power button on the remote control.
Yep, unless you have a TV old enough to have a physical wired remote, which I did have.
Right. Another thing that you don't think about,
that's how old I am,
is that TVs, you expect when you push the power button for that TV to turn the fuck right on, right? You don't want to be like, push power button, wait on.
Well, I'm already I push power button. My TV takes like 7 seconds to boot.
Well, if it's got
it's
bullshit.
Not even a smart TV. It's just shitty.
The point is you want it to go fast, right? But the TV has inside of it these capacitors that need to be filled up in order for the TV to turn on.
Not as much as old CRT TVs.
It's gotten better, but there's still some in there, right? If you unplug your TV from the wall, those capacitors will slowly drain, and then if you plug your TV back in, they'll slowly fill up as soon as you plug the TV back in. If you unplug the TV, wait a long time for them to drain, or dangerously drain them. Do not do that.
Yep.
And then plug the TV back in and push the power button. The TV might have some trouble turning on if you do that.
Yep.
Right? So it's like, and the thing is, that slow drain, right? Even though it might be ridiculously slow, right? It's still greater than zero, the power that is constantly trickling to keep them always full for that moment you push the power button.
So where we're going with all this, the progression, I think, the problem with PCs is that the model and like how power saving is done is so inconsistent and so shitty and so poorly documented. And even if it's documented, it's not implemented according to the documentation.
And it's rare that it works perfectly. Unless you buy like a MacBook running OS X and you don't mess with it. Even then, I doubt it'll always work perfectly.
Yep.
You'll be like, sleep and it won't. Or hibernate
and phones have gone a different route in the sense that because the phones are a little bit more proprietary and self-contained, like I've watched this progression on Android. I can't speak to iPhone, where originally my Android phones would they used power at the rate they used it. You want to use less power? Just dim the screen. Put it in airplane mode. But over time, Android started adding all these features, like I could configure power-saving things. But then it evolved to, it just made a bunch of automatic intelligent defaults about power saving. And then it moved into even more advanced intelligent defaults. So now my phone automatically, and I could configure this, but I don't need to. I don't care that much. If it hits like 15% battery, it just automatically suspends as much as it can to save as much battery as possible without preventing basic things from working.
Yep.
And then I can choose, whenever that happens, a button pops up, and I can go in and hit the button and say, no, save as much battery as possible. And then it'll just turn off way more stuff to save the battery as much as physically possible. And by removing the complexity and just making it work with intelligent defaults, my phone just lasts a lot longer, and no one has to learn a bunch of ACPI type nonsense. Desktop PCs need to somehow get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy a desktop PC where the OS is already installed from the vendor or whatever, laptop especially, hopefully all this stuff is working great.
I have it on good authority. It still doesn't work. I know people buying like a brand new PC.
I
from,
close the
Alienware.
lid and the screen doesn't turn off.
Yep.
You know, all kinds of bullshit, right?
You can go configure all that.
Yeah, good luck.
And to this day, I still see so many people walking around, like in my office, carrying a modern MacBook, and they're walking, holding it open with their finger between the clamp, like on an elevator.
Yep.
I don't understand why people are like that.
I forgot one thing, which is the hybrid sleep mode.
Oh,
so
God.
hybrid sleep mode is actually not. It's actually just sleep mode, right? It's not any different. It's not a different S level as far as the motherboard or the hardware is concerned. It's like an OS thing. Where Windows can do, I don't know if OS X does it, is you say sleep, and it goes, okay, I go to sleep. But in addition to sleeping, it sleeps like normal. In addition to sleeping, it will write the hibernation file just like when it hibernates to the disk, in addition to sleeping, right? So that way, if something happens while it's sleeping, say it gets turned off or power goes out or who knows, and you turn it back on, it's like, well, it was like you were hibernating. We're going back to where you started. Sorry, you had to turn me all the way back on. I fell too much asleep.
That works fine on my computer.
Yep.
But regular ass sleep mode, I can't wake up from it.
Yep. It's too long to say what's wrong with my home theater PC.
I'm currently investigating
I wouldn't mind if it was my regular PC as much, because when you sit down at a desktop, the power button's right there. I don't mind pushing it.
Yep.
But for the fucking HD PC, I'm on the couch. It's really important. I want it to sleep only, because if it hibernates or goes off, I have to get up to turn it on.
Also, my
And I don't want to leave it on all the time because it's wasting a lot of electricity.
Yeah. And my desktop PC, I turn the fuck off because my desktop PC, when I'm actually using it, draws a ton of power because it's really a workstation.
Yep. I might just end up leaving the HTPC on. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of don't want to. It's real bad.
So my thinking for PCs, honestly, is that OS X should just do things to make it work. Like Apple can just make it work. If it doesn't work on an Apple device, like what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
PCs, we should just assume that every PC is running Windows and just make power saving work with Windows. Because if it's a server, power saving is a whole different world. Consumers are not running Linux on the desktop. That ship sailed and sank. So I feel like we should just assume Windows and make assumptions based on that to make this just work a little bit better on desktops.
You know, they've been working on this for, years and years and years, and Microsoft and the motherboard companies and CPU companies still have not been able to make this all work perfectly in all computers.
Yep.
So,
and yeah, there isn't really cool story, bro.
This is really not an issue for any kind of server or anything ever, right? Because servers are either on or off. You don't want to have a server go to sleep. What's the point of that?
Yeah, I might have servers that...
You might want a server to have a hibernation file in case it ever gets turned off. You can turn it back on, but there's other ways to solve that problem for servers.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need to do that, and it's like they're never going to go hibernate. They're never going to sleep. They're going to be on or off.
Yeah, and maybe you're using complex modern virtualization where the hardware is being power managed in a world entirely outside of whatever operating systems you're running shit in.
Yep, that's usually what happens. So, and especially cloud services.
Yep.
So, yeah. It's only a user computer issue.
So for the time being, I just power my computer off every day after we do Geek Nights.
Oh, man.